sloth, greed, wrath, gluttony, lust, envy, and pride. There are 7 Assassin's Creed games that represent these deadly sins in one form or another. Starting with sloth, which is a combination of laziness and apathy, where one avoids effort or shows a lack of care. And nobody cared less about Assassin's Creed Rogue than Ubisoft themselves. The day is November 11, 2014. The PS4 and Xbox One had been out for a year, but your name is Assassin's Creed Rogue and you're not coming out on PS4 or Xbox One. You're launching on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Uh-oh, that's the old stuff. Which is crazy because I could have sworn there was an Assassin's Creed game that came out on that day for the next gen consoles. But would you look at that? Rogue and Unity. 2 different Assassin's Creed games, 2 different console generations, but launching on the very same day. That's okay, as long as Ubisoft doesn't heavily favor one over the other. It won't be a complete waste of an entire game, right? What's that? Oh yeah, they spent every marketing dollar on Unity. Now it's Christmas 2014 and Mummy and Daddy have $60 United States to buy you one new game. They're having trouble deciding between 2 $60 options. Option 1 was developed in 8 months and provided 10 hours of main campaign. Option 2 was developed over 4 years and provided 17 hours of main campaign. It's a real coin flip. But back to the marketing. Surely Ubisoft told somebody about Assassin's Creed Rogue. I mean, it's their game and they want to sell copies, right? Well, the guy voicing the main character went around Comic-Con in an AC Rogue shirt that he himself made, trying to self-promote the game. Over 3 days at the convention, only one person asked him about it, and even they didn't really seem to care. Let's look at the trailers. Rogue's world premiere trailer came out just 3 months before the game, with 2.9 million views today. Unity's world premiere trailer came out 5 months before the game, with 58 million views today. Does one of these seem like maybe it was marketed a bit more than the other? Let's check the sales figures. Surely not many people had PS4s or Xbox Ones, they hadn't been out long, so Rogue probably sold well, right? Well, Ubisoft never told us Rogue's units sold, instead opting only to tell us the combined number of sales between the 2 games. Interesting. By the way, I kind of glossed over the development timeline for Rogue, but you heard me right. They made and shipped this product in 8 months total. Nothing says this game is a priority to us like Ubisoft going, so what can you cook up over the next few months for the holiday season? Got any ideas? Yeah, we want a full game. The main character's voice actor said they were writing the story as he was recording the lines. And while Rogue would ultimately fade into obscurity, this next game would be pushed into the spotlight with disastrous consequences. Greed is thought of as the excessive desire for something, like wealth, power, or fame. And everything Ubisoft did with Assassin's Creed Unity was motivated by this sin. You might not have played Unity, but I bet you recognize this image, or this. One of the most iconic video game glitches of all time. But how do we get here? You see, when a new generation of consoles come out, there's just not many games for those consoles yet. So anyone who can get something out early has a wide open field as people clamor to actually try out their shiny new box. So even though Unity was half-baked and overly ambitious, Ubisoft saw dollar signs. Cha-ching, awooga. Not only that, it was about to be holiday season and people need games to buy for Christmas. So come hell or high water in November 2014, they pushed it out the door. Some might say violently kicked. And yes, it launched with a plethora of horrific but kind of amazing visual bugs and multiple game-breaking stability bugs, forcing Ubisoft to email players and apologize while offering them free DLC content, or in the case of the season pass holders, entire games for free, like Far Cry 4 or The Crew. But hey, at least you could finally crouch. No, really, you couldn't crouch at will to enter stealth until Unity, and it's the 8th game in the series. The tragedy is the reception for this game was so bad that Ubisoft upper management chose the nuclear option and used this moment to soft reboot the franchise as we knew it, attributing the poor sales and negative reviews not just to the rushed release, but also to the game design itself. And after one experiment had failed, the next would throw out the rulebook altogether. But before we move on from greed, hi, I'm covered in oil. Etheria Restart is a gorgeous RPG, so intense it'll grow your chest hair its own chest hair. Civilization has collapsed. The world froze, and we uploaded humanity into a digital utopia. That's good, right? No. Bad guys are killing us, and there's no Netflix. But this isn't baby game turn-based combat, unless that baby's a cybernetic war tactician specifically trained in military conquest. in which case, fair enough. Build your ultimate team with heroes such as the hottest grandma alive, the guy who studied philosophy for 1 semester only, and your favorite auntie that drinks too much wine at Christmas. Available everywhere your thumbs and eyeballs can reach, including iOS, Android, a PC launcher, and Steam. Challenge bosses bigger than your social anxiety, but they have twice the self-awareness. The strategic real-time PvP is like if Summoners War or Epic 7 chugged 16 energy drinks and punched you in the face. I will not elaborate further. In Etheria Restart, you don't just level up your character. You ascend with them to the very throne of heaven, only to find God himself already in queue for a rematch against you. Pre-register the game right now using my link or search Etheria Restart in the app/Google store. Sponsored by Etheria Restart and One Gust of Wind. Wrath is an intense anger, often leading to hatred, violence, or revenge. And Ubisoft wanted their revenge on the player base for not buying and loving Assassin's Creed Unity. Whether the fans wanted it or not, almost every core system that Assassin's Creed was known for was about to get an overhaul. And that brings us to Assassin's Creed Origins. You've probably heard someone say that modern Assassin's Creed games are different to their classic brethren. Well, this game is the fracture in that timeline. You see, basically every game before Origins was an open world action game with a sprinkle of RPG. But now, Origins was taking us in a new direction. It's an open world RPG first with a sprinkle of action. What do I mean? Well, previously you could one-shot everyone with the hidden blade, because you're an assassin after all. But now you can only one-shot everyone if you've upgraded that hidden blade sufficiently. And even then, most elite enemies and bosses still can't be one-banged. Areas are now level gated, so if you haven't put in the time to grind a certain amount of XP, even regular enemies are impossible to kill. Loot has rarity tiers. There's no more social stealth. Gear slots need to be upgraded, and that's gonna need materials. So you better go hunt some animals. Basically, you're playing Far Cry in the Assassin's Creed universe now. The bandit camps had caged animals that can be freed to cause chaos. You can crouch and whistle to enemies who all have detection meters above their head. It's Far Cry DNA seeping into this new style of Assassin's Creed. Before this, you were mostly running along rooftops doing cool parkour, but now you're mostly on the ground or on horseback, so parkour is less important. Previously, you were waiting for an enemy to attack and then one-shotting them with a counter kill. Origins is much more of a proactive action RPG. You're the one attacking because you're the one in control. Stealth is also much more optional, with open combat being less of a fail state. So why did they do this anyway? While Origins was in early development, Far Cry was exploding, with Far Cry 3 selling 4.5 million copies and Far Cry 4 selling 7 million copies around the same time as Unity. Clearly, something about the Far Cry formula was working. On top of that, The Witcher 3 had come out in early 2015, right as Ubisoft was deciding what new direction they should take the franchise with Origins. The market had spoken. Open world RPGs were hot and breedable. Except, despite every change I mentioned between classic Assassin's Creed and Origins, it could still be described as RPG light. They hadn't gone full hog yet, but they were close. There was still no dialogue or story choices to be made. You couldn't influence your character or get a different ending, but that was all about to change. Because gluttony is all about overindulgence. Up until Odyssey, the average main story length of an Assassin's Creed game was just under 18 hours of playtime. Then Odyssey comes along and says, what if we bumped that up by 156% to 45.5 hours? In a German interview, the narrative director said that the complete story would take 100 hours. Not to mention, this game was boasting probably the biggest open world map ever made when it released in 2018. But Odyssey would prove that bigger isn't always better. And with only 3 years of development, how did they even do this? Well, there is a fair amount of copy paste with the buildings and camps, the set dressing and color palette changes to give you the illusion it's a whole new area, but that's not always the case. Hey, if you asked me to fill a planet Earth-sized environment with assets in under 3 years, I'm pressing Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V until my keyboard explodes. And then I'm pressing Ctrl-Z. And yes, I'm running defense for Odyssey because I played it for over 100 hours and it's one of my favorite games of all time. But not everyone was simping like I was, because Operation RPG was in full swing. And if you didn't like the franchise's third-person Far Cry direction, then you were in for a very bad time. Dialogue choices had become frequent and meaningful. You could choose to be an a-hole or forgive someone or romance a grandma. Cassandra or Alexios were shaped by your decisions with multiple endings depending on the choices you made. The skill trees have a bigger dick than you. The gear is more looter shooter than ever. Gone are the days of actually having to look for footholds to do parkour like in classic Assassin's Creed. Now every surface is climbable, no matter how smooth. Just turn your brain off and hold forward forever. The level gating of new areas is even more aggressive in Odyssey than it was in Origins. If you only care about the main story and don't really want to do side quests, after about 15 hours, you'll be in for a rude awakening. You'll probably be about 10 levels below what's required to thrive in the next area, because at 3 levels below, even a minor enemy is almost almost impossible to kill. So at that time, you'll have two choices. Grind side quests for as long as it takes, even though they're mostly meaningless and forgettable, or buy the 50% XP boost in the store for 10 United States dollars. Yep. It just so happens that the longest, grindiest campaign in any Assassin's Creed game also introduces a 50% XP boost for the first time. What a coincidence. Now, for someone like me who was living their best life exploring every inch of this world, then no problem, I'll grind 10 levels. But if you only care about the main story and want a nice, tight experience with minimal grind or side quests, that XP boost is going to call your name like an ADHD diagnosis to a Twitch streamer. And while you're in the store, why not check out the ship and horse cosmetics? Insanely strong weapons, full armor sets with bonuses, map unlocks, currency packs, or XP and money boosters. Oh yes, the crown of overindulgence fits snugly on Odyssey's head. And that crown almost went to our next game if not for a certain scandal and a certain cultural movement. Lust is one's uncontrolled desire, especially of a sexual nature. In June 2020, a few months before the release of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, a Twitch streamer came forward accusing the creative director of sexual misconduct. She alleged that he pursued a romantic relationship with her while lying about his marital status, tweeting, "This person is married. When he starts a relationship with you, know he's married. This is why he doesn't want to talk on the phone or FaceTime or have things sent to the house. I was with him for a year on and off before finding out." She said it was a consenting relationship, but he concealed his marriage and claimed the wedding band was just for show, specifically so that his parents wouldn't be asked why their son wasn't married. A few days after the accusation, he stepped down as creative director, apologized, and deleted his social media. Ubisoft launched an investigation which ultimately led to the dismissal of Ismail. Remember, this was at a time when the Me Too movement was in full swing, and several other high-profile Ubisoft employees were also being accused of sexual misconduct. Another creator would share his experience, stating that in 2013, Ismail hit on his girlfriend after an Assassin's Creed Black Flag event at 1 a.m. in the DMs. He said they brushed it off at the time, but it definitely felt weird. Ismail at 1:09 a.m. said, "It was a pleasure meeting you today. I have to say, I was very charmed by you." And then 30 minutes later, "I hope I'm not being too forward, but I would like to get to know you better." The girlfriend responded politely the next day, saying, "It was very nice to meet you too. Luma, the boyfriend, thinks the world of you, and he was excited to introduce me to you. I'm sorry if I misrepresented myself in any way. I really am a very happy full-time Luma girlfriend. I am not available to get to know." Now, remember the power dynamics at play here. Ismail was the creative director of Assassin's Creed Black Flag at the time. So they have the press event where Ismail is the most important person, where Luma, who's a super fan of the franchise, almost certainly introduces this lady as his girlfriend. Then later that night, Ismail rolls the dice at 1 a.m. saying he was very charmed by her and that he'd like to get to know her better. She handles it like a champ, saying, "Hey, my boyfriend thinks the world of you and you know I'm his girlfriend, so this is really weird that you've reached out to me like this." Furthermore, Ismail had a habit of this kind of behavior. Multiple women came forward stating that he pursued them by utilizing his power and position at Ubisoft, even while acting as an official representative of the company at industry events like E3. Hey, when you're the creative director of Assassin's Creed and you specifically target fans of the franchise with sexual advances, some might call that home field advantage, but I call it inappropriate. And as one scandal revealed the dark side of Ubisoft, this next game would try to recapture the light of the past at all costs. Envy is a jealous desire towards someone else for what they have. And Mirage's #1 desire was to be like the old Assassin's Creed games, a return to the classic roots, or so the marketing would have you believe. The main story is technically 16 hours long, but feels like maybe 9 hours that's been stretched out. It's weak, thin, and poorly structured, lacking any memorable characters or even a compelling plot. You know, the thing that makes stories good. The single city location is back, and this time it's Baghdad. While quite immersive and intricately designed, it's visually repetitive, with no distinct districts to set it apart. Also, with no real meaningful NPC interactions, it ends up feeling somewhat hollow and lifeless. Stealth is back, and it's no longer optional like the RPG Assassin's Creed games made it. It's one of Mirage's best features, although the AI is extremely simplistic and predictable, which does limit its depth. The social stealth mechanics are also back, but unfortunately poorly integrated and underused. The combat is actually the game punishing you. It's so shallow. It's the game saying you were supposed to be stealthy and now you've been caught, so F you. This makes sense on paper, but is a weak imitation of the old games and feels so bad in reality. The improved world design allows for more free-flowing parkour with all the intricate roofs and paths. That really is classic Assassin's Creed, but the monkey's paw strikes again, with the animations often feeling stiff and and awkward. In the end, Mirage is a sincere attempt to return to the roots, but it's mostly a cheap knockoff instead of an evolution of the special formula. Also, it was originally supposed to be just a DLC for Valhalla. That might explain why it struggled to capture the essence of the older, beloved games, having so little to work with. Another game that would struggle to capture the essence of something really important is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Pride is excessive self-importance, arrogance, or ego. When Ghost of Tsushima came out in 2020, Sucker Punch did such a good job portraying the Japanese island that two of the lead developers were honored as permanent tourism ambassadors by the real-life place. Let's contrast that with the rollout of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and you'll start to see why pride comes before the fall. It's May 2024, one day before the world premiere of Assassin's Creed Shadows. The game director said in an interview with Xbox Wire, quote, "Assassin's Creed is well known for its depiction of the history and accurate recreation of the world. We're showing real historical figures, so you're not only playing in feudal Japan, but learning about this fantastic time period," end quote. Great. The next day, the trailer actually dropped. Ooh, so people didn't love it. Maybe the gameplay trailer will be better?
Not while I have breath in my lungs and a blade in my head.
Did they just give the black guy hip-hop music? Someone at Ubisoft really said, throw some beats in there, Jeremy. Black people are all the same and they love that stuff. Except he's African, not African American. Let's double check the historical accuracy claims while we're here. Most of the modern references to Yasuke can be traced back to this guy, Thomas Lockley, who wrote the book Yasuke in 2019. Originally, the wiki page had Yasuke listed as a retainer for a Japanese warlord, which means servant, but in July 2023, he was promoted on the page to a fully fledged samurai. I was curious where this new title had come from, so I checked the citation, but he was still the same as before. Page 14 and 15 of the Latada Diary, written by a samurai retainer from the time. So I found what I'm pretty sure is the diary on the Japanese National Diet Library Digital Collections website. Bit of a mouthful. Google Translate could not accurately understand these old characters, so I used KuroNet to convert them to readable text, which then allowed ChatGPT to translate the letters to modern English. It's not perfect, obviously, so if you speak Japanese, please let me know in the comments how I did, but I was able to find the page in question. The only reference to Yasuke was a single line that read, quote, "The loyal retainers secured Kai province," unquote. He was known to be among those retainers, but is not mentioned anywhere by name that I could find. To call him a samurai based off this citation when the text itself calls him a retainer is a bit of a reach. Maybe I missed something, but I checked several pages before and after the incident, and there was nothing else of note. Anyway, Thomas Lockley made a bunch of edits to the Wikipedia page, sourcing himself. That name, Totori Tom, is Thomas Lockley. Also, he was sourcing himself before his work was even published. And when you compare the Japanese version of his book to the English version, in Japanese, he openly acknowledges there's no evidence for one of his major claims about Yasuke. Lockley also claimed you can trust his book because it was fact-checked by a Japanese expert of the Hinoji incident, until that historian came forward denying he'd done any such thing. Oops. How did Thomas respond to all the criticism? By deleting his social media accounts, which is always a reassuring sign. So calling Yasuke a samurai is not historical consensus and is highly debated, to the point where Ubisoft had to apologize to Japanese players, saying they never intended to present Shadows as a factual representation of history. That's apology number one. Except before the controversy, the line is, check out how historically accurate we are. And then after the controversy, the line is, we never meant to present that we were being historically factual. Anyway, what if we also violate the copyright of a Japanese reenactment group's flag? Ooh, that's apology 2. It's too late for the collector's edition art book though. Those have shipped with the designs we stole. Okay, what if we make a collectible with a one-legged torii gate, which are sacred to the Japanese people, and make it like the one in Nagasaki that survived a nuclear blast? Oh, what's that? It's especially insensitive? Ooh, that's apology 3. For some reason, pre-orders are still low, so now there's a Japanese community update blog post acknowledging Yasuke isn't historically a samurai and begging the Japanese audience to please still buy the game. That's apology 4. Then Ubisoft Japan cancels its Tokyo Game Show appearance for various reasons. Better delay the game 5 months to polish and refine the experience. Meanwhile, Insider Gaming reports it's actually to change Yasuke's story and fix some historical inaccuracies. People are still mad. What to do? All right, pre-orders and season passes are canceled and the collector's edition gets a price drop. Huh? Okay, what about those 3 days of early access for pre-ordering? You guys hated that. That's also gone. And the game now gets a day 1 Steam release for the first time in 6 years. And then one final thing to sweeten the pot. Everyone gets the first expansion for free. Please buy the game, guys. Look how pro-consumer we are, and also it's unrelated to all the controversy. We did this for the love of the game. That being said, we will be delaying the game again, this time to March 2025. And just to be safe, Ubisoft removes Yasuke from the promotional material on the website. Okay, what about a nice boba tea collab for a bit of fun, huh? Oh, That's from Taiwan, not Japan. Damn it. A Japanese politician warns of legal action over the ability to destroy in-game shrines based on real-life locations. That seems overblown. It'll probably die down. Except the Japanese Liberal Party brings it up again at an official government meeting. The Prime Minister himself responds, saying, defacing a shrine is out of the question. It is an insult to the nation itself. Ubisoft didn't comment, but then in a day one patch made temples and shrines indestructible, then also reduced blood spill in those areas. The deluxe edition legendary mount was criticized for being mostly Chinese inspired. So I asked ChatGPT what it thought, and it was like, yeah, that does look Chinese. I asked, but what percentage would you say it looks Chinese? Because maybe it's close. Nope, 80% Chinese. Oh, all of this is before the game even came out. Can you make an African guy the main character of a Japanese-themed video game? Of course. Now let's imagine a game about an African country, but the main character is Japanese. Look, if people got upset and thought it was kind of weird, that'll be fair enough, right? Anyway, contrast all of this against the fact that 2 Ghost of Tsushima developers were made permanent tourism ambassadors by the place they represented on screen. One studio honored the culture, and one thought they knew better. If you want to get in the credits and help me make more videos like this, check out the Patreon, or for a free alternative, hit subscribe, you filthy effing goblin. Hey, quickly check out the video on screen. It's my non-gamer wife playing Elden Ring for 11 days while I sat there taking notes, offering no help whatsoever.